Success. Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to another SOULution Sunday, because the soul is the solution. And working on live streaming from Zoom to Facebook, we finally found the SOULution. Sorry, we're a couple minutes late this morning. Technology is great when it works perfectly. So everyone, welcome, welcome, welcome. Here we are this morning with our special guest, Huanshedo Valle. Huanshedo has an amazing story, and he is a fitness and nutrition educator and a people builder. So we're going to find out all about what that means, and we're going to hear about Huanshedo's amazing story. So today our episode is called "Don't Let That Stop You." So this is a little precursor to Huanshedo's amazing story. So Huanshedo, welcome to SOULution Sunday.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
You are so welcome. Thank you. So I know you have a pretty amazing story of somewhere where you kind of felt stuck at one point, and then but you did not let that stop you at all. So would you like to share your story with us?
Yeah, so basically, growing up, my childhood was a little different. I have a physical disability called cerebral palsy. Basically affects my walking gait a little bit, as well as like motor units like writing, typing, and stuff like that. So growing up was a little different. Had to go through, I would say, 10 to 13 years of physical therapy, and that would be after school and stuff like that. But it was definitely a different path in my childhood. Whereas most kids would get to do things like run the mile in PE, like in elementary and middle school, I would have to have more adaptations like that. I'm a really physical person in terms of I like exercise, of course, and stuff like that. But a lot of things were just a little different. Not so much that I felt like an outcast, but there was times where you have that feeling within, especially young growing up, experiencing the reality of not everyone's going to be as nice as your family members, so there was like some bullying you run into from elementary to high school, and that was probably the moments where you felt the most stuck. But I don't think it stopped me, because I'm a coach now. I consider myself an educator to an extent, because I don't like labeling myself as a teacher, because I feel like once you lose a student mentality, that's where you feel like you've made the most progress. And I always want to have a student mentality, because I feel like there's always more to learn. Part of the reason why I'm on the show today with you, I feel like whatever you or the listeners are going to learn from me, I feel like I'm going to learn just as much from you, Lisa. So that's why I'm super excited. But yeah, growing up with cerebral palsy was different. There was a point where I had to wear orthopedic braces for, I think, up until I was 12 or 13. Went through a very special surgery when I was in the 3rd grade in New York. So that was fun. I got to travel to New York and be with my parents. And basically it was a surgery to I wouldn't say modify, but to help my gait. So my right foot, the heel used to be elevated, and then my left foot would be turned in. So this surgery helped with keeping my feet flat, changed my life. The doctor was amazing, Dr. Nuzzo. The experience with my parents was amazing. It was great, tough. It was tough growing up with like questions of like, why am I different and stuff like that, talking to my parents. But I don't think, if I didn't go through that, I don't think I'd be a coach. If I didn't go through that, I don't think I'd be where I am today, for sure.
Exactly. I find that those challenges when we overcome those challenges, that's where our greatest power lies. That's where our greatest accomplishment is. It's where our greatest learning is.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think it creates an undeniable force of resiliency. But a lot of that has to do with your support system too, and especially my spirituality. I think growing up as someone who is Native American and having two parents that have really taught you um, the history of it, especially from my dad. I mean, my dad, he has educated me on so much in terms of the history of our culture and spirituality. And my mom and her mother, my grandma, they really have showed us the importance of ceremony and how sacred ceremony is, and how close we should hold it to our heart, how much we should continue to trust creator. So I think with that resiliency I built, I think it stems from a lot from my siblings and parents, and of course my culture and spirituality. So I have to give a lot of credit to that.
Yeah. And anybody who's been following SOULution Sunday for a while knows your mom as
Oh
Shannon
yeah.
Valle.
If it says Shannon right here, I'm not Shannon.
Right.
I hope people don't think my mom grew a beard overnight.
Right.
That's not it.
Funny. Yeah, and we know Shannon as the one who contributes the beautiful food and recipe articles to my newsletter, and
Hmm,
we're going to be creating some new things coming up in the new year. So everybody stay
exciting.
tuned for that.
Exciting.
And if you were listening last week, you heard Huanshedo's brother, Nava, and
Yeah.
we had a beautiful conversation. But I love what you're talking about as far as the importance of ceremony and tradition.
Yeah.
So much of life, so much of the ceremonies, the festivals, the beauty, the gathering, the
Yeah.
community, the celebrating
Yeah.
of life has been lost along the way. There are so
Yeah.
many people at this point in time that they don't feel like they have things to
Yeah.
celebrate, that
Hmm.
they're really so caught in the survival mode, trying to protect themselves and just make it in this life,
Yeah.
that ceremony has really been lost. So I'm so happy to hear that you are keeping that so beautifully alive.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're right. I think for some people they have lost a sense of that. And some people haven't even had an opportunity to really experience um some sort of spiritual connection, or they haven't got to whatever culture you're from, they haven't had experience to connect to their culture like they would. But yeah, it's really important. I mean, growing up from having an opportunity to having a pipe ceremony where you do your prayer ties, and you smoke the pipe of tobacco just with your family. That's a small one. I mean, we had done it in the house. From that and going to a sweat with other native people and experiencing that connection with my people. I mean, it goes from something small to something maybe a large gathering like a powwow. You feel rooted, and I think when you feel rooted, you know your purpose. And I think when you know your purpose, you don't feel lost. So
Exactly.
I think it all ties in with each other. That's why, the stuff that I went through, yeah, for sure. I think it has a part that rooted me, the experiencing some sort of harsh reality of people are going to make fun of you. Sometimes people are going to make comments. Sure, that had an extent of rooting me, but I think more so you got to focus on the support and the love you get from your family and your friends, and then of course for me, my culture, just trying to be in tune of who I am and why I need to understand the history of my culture, why that was important. um, I think they play their part 50-50, and I think for people who feel stuck right now, the best thing I could could kind of give you advice on is if find what's going to keep you rooted. So if you feel like you can't find yourself within your culture, or there's nothing for you to latch onto maybe spiritually right now, then I think the biggest thing you could do is latch on to what is positive around you then, and what gives you strength. So if that's family, yeah. If that's your dog, then yeah, I think each person has their one thing they could find to help them. I know it's different for everybody, especially when people are trying to find, uh, you know, to push through a barrier. Um, so I think for people, the biggest thing is find what roots you, really.
I really love that, because uh, roots suggest a connection to Mother
Yeah.
Earth.
Like grounding almost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think one of the most beautiful things about the Native American tradition is that they look at everything as alive.
Yeah.
The trees, the earth, the waters, the airs, that they are kin, that they are
Mhm.
actually living beings.
Yeah.
And I think that in today's society, we have just been taught to overlook. These are just things. This is just a dead rock moving through space, and trees are just here for us to cut down to use. And if we start to notice that everything around us is alive, we can start to develop a relationship with
Mm.
everything that is alive. And we can start to see that Mother Earth is under our feet and has been supporting us and giving us a solid foundation
Mhm.
for our entire lives in these
Yeah.
physical bodies. We are supported all the time, but we're not always supported by the people around us that we see, but we're always supported by nature.
Yeah. I think, yeah, and that's a big thing there. I think it comes down to a little bit of like, we need a sense of validation or truth from the individuals around us, but for some reason, we don't seek validation and truth from our environment. I think people forget, like, I think to kind of tie everything together, what I said last, and then what you said too, is like, I think people think humans are the only ones with a purpose here, where they forget at the end of the day, we're somewhat of a speck. And then all the trees and our land and the mountains and everything that you listed, they're doing their purpose. They're keeping Earth, rotating. Whereas, us, we're so consumed by our biggest problems, from having a coffee not made properly to our Tesla not opening properly. That's our biggest issue, that we forget to take a step back and, like what you're saying, look at the big picture. We're so consumed of our daily stresses that we don't understand that forever that we've been hurting the land, and we've been disrespecting nature for so many years. But I think you're right. I think we want support from the people in front of us, what we can see, but we don't ever seek, like, wait, what does the universe have in store for us? Like, can I sit down in a park, breathe, take a moment to relax and understand? Because it's funny, right? If you tell someone to slow down their breathing, like I have my clients slow down their breathing in between sets when they're getting tired, you start noticing they're calm, because they're controlling the narrative, but they forget that if you take a moment to sit down and breathe, you could be outside or inside, you have more control than you think, right? Because when you're really tired, people are, gasping for air, and they feel like, oh man, I don't have any control, my heart rate's going crazy. But you take a step back, slow your breathing down, you control that variable. And it's the same thing with a stress response, like, because a lot of people forget, when we're stressed out, let's say about a financial situation, that cortisol response that we get is so similar to the cortisol response we get in exercise. But see, people don't freak out when they get tired and exercise, but they freak out when they have a financial issue. So if we can control both variables there and take a moment to take a step back and be like, okay, what is it that's the underlying issue here that's making me react emotionally? Then I think you can really find the solution, the SOULution, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you're right that it really does all come down to feeling supported. You know, you were so fortunate to have such a loving and supportive family that is so connected to Mother Earth and all of the elements, you know. So you've grown up feeling supported all the way around by both
Yeah.
the human world and the non-human world.
Yeah.
And when people don't feel supported, that that because everything is a mirror for us, if we're feeling grounded and supported and safe, the money starts flowing, the community starts flowing, life just is in flow.
Yeah.
But when we're not feeling that, when we're feeling that disconnection, then we don't feel safe, the money doesn't flow and life doesn't flow. It feels like
Yeah.
it's a big scary thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And I think too, it just comes down to like when people feel like they've lost the grasp of control in something, like so like for I'll use myself as an example, but like the moments I feel like I've ever lost some sort of control of a variable in my life is, for example, I'll go back to wearing orthopedic braces. You could ask anybody in my family, you could ask my parents. I hated wearing those because it hurt. I mean, it was, just gotta put those on. And then, I have to order like a size 15 shoe because the outside of the brace, not really. They look like clown shoes though. It felt like size 15 growing up, but having to go to school, wearing these plastic, orthopedic braces and then wearing shoes extra big so it fits my foot. I mean, that was like a moment where for me personally, I'm like, I don't want to wear these. It hurts. It's silly. That's probably a moment in my life where I felt like I had no control, because people correlate, if I don't have control, then I feel pain. I've noticed that's a big thing. If I don't have control, then I feel sad, or I feel, which is fine because it's from a documentary. I wish I could tell you the documentary, but emotion is energy in motion. So, feeling sad, feeling happy, feeling stressed, that's energy in motion. Um, but that was a moment where I felt like I had no control, because my body was, my body didn't like wearing those braces. But then looking back at it now, it's like, now that I'm older, now that I'm 23 years old, it's like I had to I had to be in that stage of my life because that's when I felt limited. But now that I'm past that, so I think, you almost need to feel when you're going to run into a wall. Like you need an obstacle to hold you back, so that when you look back on it, you could reflect and be like, okay, this is where I'm at now. So maybe I shouldn't be so hard on myself now, because look at the jump of growth I made. I'm not as limited as I was. Yeah, sure, I'm not where I want to be, but it's like those moments of like feeling like you have no control over a variable in your life. It's like you need that to an extent to understand where you are today. Yeah.
Right. In order
Yeah.
to be able to overcome that and see that we actually do have control. And it's not really about control, it's about we have the ability to choose again.
And that's exactly it. Yeah. It's almost like seeing the opportunity that you didn't see before. There's always an opportunity, there's always a path you can take. And that really comes back to something my parents would always say to all of us is, creator has us on a path. So if right now you're not feeling good, you feel out of balance spiritually, you don't like my mom would always say, like when we were going through stuff, it's like if you don't feel good right now, understand that like no matter what, you have to trust creator. You have to have the faith within the path he paved down for you. Um, and that comes down to exactly like even when we're going through the tough times, it's okay to, it's not about having control of like this is tough or this is hard or this is easy. It's about understanding the bigger picture of like, okay, this is my journey. Like maybe this is where I have to be for now, but that's not ever permanent. Because the moment we look into permanence and non-permanent, that's where we get stuck. It's like, oh, I'm always gonna be in this I'm always going to be in this financial situation, or this person's never going to love me the way I want. That's, you're living too much in a permanent or non-permanent reality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And our reality reflects our beliefs. So when we believe something is permanent, then it is.
And you get stuck there.
Exactly. And then we use that the permanent manifestation to go, see, that's the way it is. But it's
Yeah.
only the way it is because we're creating it that way. Like
Yeah.
we're commanding the universe by saying this is the way it is, and the universe goes, this is the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
But it
true.
doesn't have to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. So Shannon is asking, can Huanshedo share the meaning of his name and does it have significance?
Yeah, so you know, my name's Huanshedo. If anybody's wondering the spelling, it's like Huan, HuanShedo, and it means thunder. Um, it has a huge it has a huge amount of significance. One, when I was a little kid, I thought I was a thunder cowboy, because another background is another form of physical therapy I did go through that I didn't get into was I always thought I was a cowboy because I rode horses for, I believe, 2 or 3 years for a form of my physical therapy. So I was super into, if I could ever find the pictures, I'll send them. But I was super into wearing like cowboy hats with a feather.
Uh,
Um, but yeah, my name means thunder, and it has a huge significance in terms of strength, having the inner strength, not being afraid to take a step outside of the box. And yeah, I'm very blessed to have parents who decided to name all of us in alignment of our culture. And my middle name is Martin, who was one of the he wasn't Native American, but he was from Mexico. He was a family friend and like a healer that helped us. And I was also given his name as my middle name because he had a lot to do with the process of giving my name. He was, I believe, he was at the ceremony of when I was named. So my middle name is also named after him, and he had a huge significance in my family's life. I mean, he was very important, and he, that has a sort of significance too because he was a really strong guy who wasn't perfect, but he wanted to help people. And I think that's, I'm very happy to have the names that I have, you know, Huanshedo, Martin, and then of course my last name Valle. I'm very blessed to have that name, and I give a lot of credit to my parents, if not all the credit. You know, they have a lot to do with who I am and what my name means, and that's why I hold my name uh, close to me. All of us do, though. I mean, my brother is Navanad. My eldest sister is Thernapa Nopsi. My other older sister is Machipwa Choki. And then my little sister is Oyekmi Sutai. So I think we all hold our names to a large amount of significance to who we are.
wow. And it's my understanding that you're not named right out of the birth canal. that
No.
that you have a naming ceremony, and that it's
Yeah.
that you wait to find out more about who is this soul, why are they here, what is
Yeah.
their significance. Can you tell us a little bit about how that process works?
In terms of like the naming ceremony.
Well, I mean, in the American culture or whatever, we're given a name right at birth. We
Yeah.
have to, the mother puts the name on the birth certificate, and
Yeah.
there you go. Now you've got your name. And
Yeah.
to me, as a really young child, like I thought about, or I was aware at very, I don't know, expanded levels when I was 2, 3, 4, or 5 years old. Like I would think about a lot of these things, be like, this name is weird to me. Like there's
Yeah.
something weird about my name. And I never, it's not that it's a bad name or, anything like that. I'm not blaming anybody, or, it was just like, I know that I have a different name. Like I
Yeah.
know that my soul has a name,
Yeah.
and I can't remember it. I can't remember what my soul name is. And I know that this name of Lisa is the name that goes with this body as this human experience, but it's not my actual name. So I knew there was just something different and something more. So, how does finding your name, how does that work? Because I was just given a name.
Yeah. Well, I think when it comes to that, I think a lot of it has to do with my parents and seeking out the advice from their elders, because they're at least for my name and a couple of my siblings names, I know that my dad's uncle had a lot to do with giving us our names. So I think when it comes to that, it's really just when we were given that name, I think we knew that it was different, but then I think for us it's more like our parents expressed, like, you were given this name, these are the meanings, this was the ceremony, like this is the strength of your name. So I think for me, in terms of like, as you grow, I think you grow into your name, if that makes sense. So I really feel like for me, and those, like what you were saying with the questions you felt about your name, that makes sense. And I think for me, how I felt is, as I got older, I understood the weight of my name. So for me, it's like I know how powerful it was. So I think growing up, you start understanding that it's not just a label anymore, that it's your strength. And there's a lot of history and culture behind it. And the biggest thing is always be proud of the name you're given. And then also understand that for us, my mom would always tell us, uh, when we are with our mom, when we're in her stomach, we chose our parents. That's a big, big thing, as my mom would always say, that we chose our parents. And so connecting that with our name, you understand as you get older the significance of, it's not just a label or a sticker I put on my shirt that says, hello, my name is, it's more of like this is who I am. And I think as you get older, you understand, like, it's not just like, because growing up, I'm pretty sure, like, all of us, all of my siblings can vouch for this. But growing up, every teacher and every sub, at least for me, almost butchered my name every time in school. So then it goes from, like growing up, you're like, my name's unique, to as you get older, it's like, okay, my name's unique because there's strength behind it.
Wow. I mean,
Yeah.
just feeling into all of that, it's like there was great thought and significance to that. And by going through that process and having people really think about the name and calling in the qualities of you and going through that process, it would give so much strength and stability and sense of self and purpose to someone.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm feeling the difference between, having a label slapped on, kind of,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that nobody thought about, that's not it at all.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was just like, having it explained, like, here's why we called you this, and this is the significance of this. And then you're able to, feel honored rather than just like, oh, here, this is what we're going to call you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you're
And
part of the process.
yeah, yeah. Um, I think, yeah, how you said that is there is a difference in terms of like understanding the strength of it, and then just like looking at it as like, yeah, it's unique, I'm proud that it's unique, but then there's more than just, it's unique, of course, not every, like, I'm the only Huanshedo, and then my siblings are you know except for my sister Nopsy. She's not the only because her name means sunflower. She's not the only Nopsy. She actually, I believe it's like a cousin on the Isleta side, on my dad's side. But understanding that, our names are like one of one, and it's not just that it's unique. It's there's a whole background in terms of strength in our culture, and keeping our culture alive in this, because like in schools, especially around the area that we're in, I mean, we were like the very few native children and native family in the school system. So it's like just keeping that alive and holding the value and strength in our culture was important, because a lot of my peers and classmates didn't know much about native culture. I mean, especially in elementary school, you learn a lot of like the propaganda of it, and now they're slowly trying to turn back that page now. Like society's trying to, be like, we never honored Christopher Columbus and stuff. But in elementary, I mean, you're reading a book about him, and my parents like played a vital role in the, especially with our teachers when we were younger. Like my mom would come out to my classes and then bring I'm not going to say memorabilia, but items from our culture, clothing and tools, and she would show them to the class, and then like all my classmates in third, second, and fourth grade would be like, whoa. And then you could kind of see them like, you'd be surprised but shocked with excitement, because like they're like, wow, I've never grown up, like, I've never had a classmate that comes from a culture like this, so what I was getting into there is just understanding of like how to carry on the strength of my culture with my name and with my family.
I think so much of your culture is really just human culture, meaning that as humans, we're meant to be connected to the earth, to the water, to the trees, to the elements. We're meant to be able to communicate with all of these kin.
Yeah.
And most of us we've never been taught, we've just been educated, pay attention to this, pay attention to this, watch the news. And
Yeah.
we're not taught any cultural significance of naming, of keeping a community together, of keeping our living community of organisms on this planet together. So I really love that your mom is amazing. She says, also, we ask an elder or spiritual teacher in our community to pray for the name. It can
Mhm.
take weeks for the name to come.
Yeah.
And Michelle says, what beautiful, interesting, soulful children you have, Shannon. You are a wonderful mama. Shannon says, the ones who give names have this special purpose to name babies. And later in life, our names may change if we choose rites of passage.
Mm.
Wow, I did not know that there are people who have a special purpose of naming.
Yeah, I know my parents have more of like an understanding and know more about it, but I do know that the people that have a lot to do with it, they hold a really high, I'm not gonna say ranking, but they're hold highly upon the community. So I know like my dad's uncle had a lot to do with it. I think it's his uncle Larry. I know that he helped name, I think, almost all of us. So I know, and he's looked upon as, someone who is like a well respected elder. And I know for me, I know to go back to my middle name and then tie it in with my first name is Martine, had a lot to do with it too, in terms of like uh, praying about it, being with my family and understanding that my first name should be my first name. So as an honor to him, my mom and dad decided to give me a middle name, which I believe I'm the only one in my family with a middle name who's named after him. So that's pretty cool as well. So I know there's strength in a lot of that too. Because I know even though he wasn't Native American, he came from a culture and he came from a background where he was a really strong healer, and uh he held a high level of importance to my parents. Like that was like basically a family to my parents and all of us. I mean, he was at our house a lot when we were kids. I mean, he would take us to the store, take us, he loved my parents and they loved him. So I'm very happy to have happy to have two names that are important to me and then important to my family.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So now you say that you're a people builder.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Tell us more.
Well, I was thinking about, I liked the fitness and the nutrition coach and educator part, but I also know like a lot to do with my job is to work with people directly. Like a lot of my clients are directly in person. I have a couple like via online and such, but most of my clientele, if not all my clientele, is in person. So the biggest thing that I do besides, try to help people get in shape physically and feel better emotionally and rebuild relationships with exercise and food, is the biggest thing is when someone comes to me, I build a relationship with them, and I try to understand who they are and where they need to be. So a lot of it has to do with uh, helping that person get past whatever roadblock they're through. So as much support I'm giving emotionally to help them get in shape physically, a lot of it has to do with being there for them and helping them get past like what we've kind of talked about today is like roadblocks, and help them see the confidence and see the person they have within. Because some of my clients, like for example, yesterday I was working with a client that I've been working with for 2 years now. Like I've seen him twice a week for 2 years. And we were talking about it. And, he was talking about like how his body has changed in such a positive direction. But the biggest thing I told him, I was like, yeah, but who you are today is so much different than who you were 2 years ago, and such a positive, and that could be confidence. That could be, like a lot of my clients come and they ask a lot of questions on why are we doing this, why we do this, like why should we eat this. And so now you see someone not necessarily act like they know it all, but you see someone who's seeking like a coach or a mentor, and they're trying to find more understanding. And so I was telling him, I'm like, dude, you've changed so much in a positive way, and you've gained so much confidence, and I could tell you're so much stronger, not just physically, because he got a lot stronger in those 2 years, but he's so much stronger as a person. So that's what really helped me think about people builder, because I try to help people build themselves up, but I only try to bring it out of them. They already have it, and that's the biggest thing for me. Is everyone thinks being a trainer is all physical lifting, pumping iron, but you have to build a really, really good bond with the person. You have to help. Uh, you have to help them. Like what you said is like, look in the mirror, but they need to see like, well, this is all the potential you have, and I try to bring all of that out.
Yeah, so it's really about building a well-rounded being, that
Yeah,
it's giving them a really solid foundation, because as
yeah,
we're going through life, it's pretty crazy out there. And
yeah,
there are a lot of things that knock us for a loop in this
yeah,
society, and it's kind of set up to destabilize us.
yeah,
If we don't have that solid foundation, it becomes extremely hard.
yeah,
Every little breeze, every little bad news item can knock us in a different direction,
yeah,
and that takes its toll on our physical bodies. But
yeah,
people don't really realize that every single thing our body does
mm,
it's doing it for a reason.
yeah,
And when we feel shaky and ungrounded within ourselves and uncertain, our bodies reflect that. They're not solid and strong and fit. So
yeah,
building up all aspects of the being and creating a solid foundation for people to stand on again is
yeah.
so important. So I love hearing you say all of that.
Yeah, I think too, like kind of what you were saying there too, is like I know my job is, yes, help amplify the physical benefits of what we're doing, help amplify their health, which is what I hold of such the highest standard is health and being strong and making sure your body feels right. But the biggest thing too is also tying in the emotional aspect with the physical. So making sure like when you work with me, I want you to trust me. When you trust me, uh, I want you to believe in me, because if you believe in me and I believe in you, then whatever goals we have set, you're gonna get there. And that's what I was talking with to this client yesterday. I said, you've been with me for 2 years, but we've built this relationship of trust, and that I trust you to get where you need to be, and I'm going to push you where you need to be. And the biggest thing too is my clients know that at the end of the day, why I'm training them, yes, there is, that's how I make my financial gain, but they know I'm not just here for just making some sort of paper. I'm here to get the results they need emotionally and physically. And the biggest thing about being a trainer, besides, really knowing what exercises to put in, or knowing to be that coach, is to also be the friend. So I need to be a friend to them, and I need to support them. I need to be there for them, not just for, gaining the muscle and getting stronger, but I need to be there to to just listen to them, because some of my clients, while they're working out, sometimes they just need someone to talk to too, and I could be that. So understanding that when I see a client, I could see what's within, but it's also my job to bring that out so they could see it. And a lot of my clients could vouch for that. And sometimes with some of my clients, it's still a working process, but I know we get through it though, because that's something I'm trying to do too, is because I feel something within, and I know I have to bring it out. So that's that, right? It's like like in karate, you start with a white belt. It's always, you got to have the white belt mentality or the student mentality, because the moment I think I'm some sort of like teacher or guru is the moment that I get lost in the knowledge I seek. So I am always going to be someone who's trying to learn more as a coach. I'm always going to be someone who's trying to learn more for myself. I never want to be that person that's like, I got all the answers. This is the perfect way to get in shape. That's never been me. My thing is, let's work hard together. Let's trust each other. Understand that for me, I'm never going to stop trying to learn. So know that where you are now and what we're doing now is always going to evolve in a positive direction. It's always going to trend upward because I want the most for my clients as people, but also as my clients too. Like, I'm always going to root for them no matter what. That's why a lot of the clients that venture out on their own and they're like, okay, I think I'm ready to go on it without a coach. See, most trainers would get their ego hurt, at least the ones that I know of. They would be like, oh, why are you leaving me? But for me, it's more of like, that makes me happy to see someone gain the confidence to venture out. And now they have a gym membership and they're doing exercises I taught them, or they're doing this, and this. And it's nice seeing that, it's just really nice seeing that.
Right. I love that too. I mean, because that's always my goal too with my clients, is like so they don't need me anymore. It's like,
Yeah.
we can learn these things and we can start tapping in to our greater self, the part of us that is connected to universal wisdom,
Yeah.
the part of us that is perfect in every single way.
Yeah.
And when we start to be able to tap into that and realize there's so much more to who we are than what we see in the mirror or what we look at with our body. And
Yeah.
we start to address the entire state of being. It's not just about making our bodies feel better or making our minds feel better. It's about the entire state of being, bringing body, mind, and soul to the highest, most fully integrated level. And, that has to include the earth and all the animals and beings on the earth as well, because we're all
Good
part
point.
of the same oneness, the all
Yeah.
that is. And
Yeah.
when we're not really looking at all of the parts and pieces as a whole, when we're looking at just separate parts, oh, my body this, or oh, my finances
Yeah.
that, it's like it's all connected.
Yeah. And to like kind of to work off of that too, it's like you can't really just isolate what you're saying. You can't just isolate one thing. Just as like if going back into working out, you can't just isolate one muscle, like in terms of like if I have someone doing their back muscles and their bicep muscles, like I'm going to have them do certain exercises that there's going to be a primary muscle working, but there's always a secondary muscle. So there's the support of the whole body there with certain exercises. Like when I'm squatting, I'm going to be using my quads and my glutes. Like my glutes will be my secondary mover, but they still have an importance of what my quads are trying to do. So function and then kind of integration, right? So there's always the muscles integrate to create the function. And it's the same thing, right? It's when you're moving forward in your life or your career or something like that, you have to integrate certain tools. So then there's that function of what what you need to do. If that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, and if you're doing squats, but you've got, feet trouble or calf trouble, like if the
Yeah.
muscles in the feet or the calves
You
are
gotta look
not
into
functioning
that.
properly or weak, it's like squats aren't going to be all that easy. It's
Yeah.
like we have to be looking at the whole system.
Yeah, and that's what I try to do for the way I coach and the way I try to help people. It's like I want to look at the big picture. I don't
Yeah.
want to just isolate one thing and be like, this is the worst thing. It's like, let's look at the big picture and let's get from point A to point B, even if it's a little bit slower than where we want it right now. But once we tie A, B, and C in, then it's like boom, that's like now we're moving, now we're trending in the right direction.
Yeah. And we have to be able to see the connection between our consciousness, our thought
Mm.
patterns, what we think about ourselves and our
Yeah.
bodies, and what's happening with our bodies.
Yeah.
Because the body is following the consciousness. Like
Yeah.
there's never something wrong with our bodies.
Yeah.
There's the something is going on in our psyche that is
Yeah.
causing what's going on in our
Mhm.
bodies.
And there's a, yeah, and like you said, there's a direct connection between the two.
Exactly. And that's one thing with kind of the whole modern medicine thing is they don't acknowledge the connection between the mind and the body at
Mm,
all. They only look at the body. They don't look at the mind or the soul.
yeah.
So as body, mind, and soul, the mind and the soul are the non-physical parts. The body
Mhm.
is the physical part, but it's the non-physical parts that are informing the physical part what to do.
Yeah.
So, when we start to understand why people have cerebral palsy, for example, like why is the body doing that? Well, at some point there was a stuck, feeling
Mm,
trapped, feeling not able to run away. And
mm,
then we start to say, oh, all right, I see there's this pattern here, and I
yeah.
know that my body will heal itself.
Yeah.
But we're not taught that until we start to look in different directions and start to say, wait a second, there's more. There's
Yeah.
more that I can learn when I look
Yeah.
beyond the what
Yeah.
is and start to look at what would I actually like to experience.
Yeah. And like I could really first hand vouch for like what you were saying about the modern medicine too, because I mean, you can ask my parents, especially my mom, because she was there. I mean, I've had a doctor tell me like at 11 years old that that he would tell my mom, oh yeah, your son's gonna need spine surgery at 16, or I was too young to remember this, but there was a physical therapist that told my mom that your son, there's a good chance your son is gonna be really overweight when he gets older due to a lack of movement. So I could really vouch for that, the limited thinking. And then it's like, okay, well, here's where my mind's at. I'm not going to be that. Not that that's bad, but I'm not going to let that stop my movement. And now, like, full circle moment, now I'm coaching, and now exercise is the biggest part of my life. One of the biggest parts of, it's not who I am, but it's a huge factor of of who I am and how exercise correlates with each other.
Exactly.
Mm.
And this is, there's such a huge misunderstanding about why our bodies gain weight.
Yeah.
And they all talk about eating or exercise, and those are not the things that actually cause the body to gain weight. When we learn about the biological laws and how our bodies actually function, it's highly unlikely that you will ever be overweight, because being overweight is when it's a special biological program that when we feel like a fish out of water, if you literally take a fish and pull it out of the water,
Stress response.
its kidney collecting tubules will shut down so that it retains as much water as possible, so that it
Yeah.
keeps the fish alive as long as possible when it's out of its natural environment.
Seeking
Well,
like,
when we feel
yeah.
like we're out of our natural environment, when we're being judged and criticized, or feeling like we're not pretty enough, or, like all of these things that make us feel really uncomfortable in our own skin,
Yeah.
that's where we feel like the fish out of water and we start gaining weight, because the body is literally trying to protect us.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with how much we've exercised or what we are eating necessarily.
Yeah. No, that's a good thing. A lot of it is emotional too.
Absolutely. When we're
Um,
not feeling comfortable in our own skin,
yeah.
there's some emotional trauma there.
Yeah. And then there's that knowing when to, for me, it's like that's where it comes into, that's where I become the emotional support system. I
Exactly.
try to reassure my clients where we are, and then we try to tweak and change certain habits of like, okay, why do you think this bad is bad, or why do you eat this knowing that you feel like this after? And then we figure that connection out, and then we either take it out or add something back in. Or like, for example, if one of my clients says, hey, I feel really good when I eat these amount of carbs, or I eat these certain carbs, I should say, then I'm never going to eliminate that out of the plan, because if they like eating this, and this, and it makes them feel good and energized and healthy, then it's like, yeah, I keep doing that. But it's like, if you noticed before you came into the session after eating a donut that you didn't feel good, maybe let's take that, let's limit it. Like now, if you like it, then let's keep it in as like kind of like a snack to fit in there once in a while. But maybe if you notice you're not feeling as energized, or as ready to go, then maybe let's limit the intake. But I never want to put a negative, I always tell my mom this, like, you never want to put a negative connotation on something sweet, or like if because some of my clients do like certain things, so I'll be like, yeah, let's work it into the plan, let's be flexible, but let's limit it how often we eat it. And that's a good way of like, my clients are like, yeah, it makes me feel better that once in a while I could have this, like once in a while I want the scoop of ice cream. And I'm like, yeah, like you got to work that in. I don't want you chewing on grass like a rabbit for 5 weeks thinking you can't have something, you can't have something
Yeah. There's
sweet.
been so much villainizing of different foods, and
Yeah. They all
it's
play their purpose. They
exactly.
all, it's like, carbohydrates do this, protein does this, fat does this. Nothing is superior to one over the other. They all play their parts in our body. And of course, how we break them down and how we eat, like in terms of, are we eating in a state of stress, or are we in a state of relaxation where we're at the table, we have our food, we don't have our phone out, we don't have a computer in front of us. Are we enjoying what we're eating? And
Exactly. Are we even
that
connected to it? Like,
yeah, and
are we even noticing what it is that we're shoveling in our mouth? Are we
yeah,
did we give thought to it? Or is it, oh, I'm
yeah,
hungry, let me just grab something on the go,
yeah,
and not
and
even really think about it?
yeah, and that has a lot to do with how we break the food down, to how we absorb it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When we get fully present, when we just kind of take a few moments and just kind of ground ourselves, just
Mhm.
kind of notice the general patterns that are
Mhm.
playing out in society, and we see that that the earth gives us all the food we need straight up out of the
Oh
soils.
yeah.
But then
Mhm.
we look and we see, well, now they're genetically modifying the foods, they're engineering foods, they're spraying chemicals on the food, and we just
Yeah.
start to go, well, is that what I actually want? Or would I rather just have the organic things that were created by creator? And we
Yeah.
start to just go, well, wait a sec. I'd rather have the things that are created by creator, that our bodies are designed to naturally process. And we just start to just kind of make some good choices for ourselves just along those lines. If the food, if you can't pronounce any of the ingredients,
Yeah.
it's kind of not really food.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's
That's a
like
good way
just
to
some
put it.
simple,
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. I agree.
Wow, Lansha, this has been such an amazing conversation. So much fun, so much wisdom shared. I really appreciate all of your
Yeah.
beautiful wisdom. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
sharing it with us today.
Yeah. Thank you, Lisa, for having me on. Thank you for providing a really good platform for people to speak.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's my pleasure. So if people would like to be able to reach out to you to gather some guidance, or if they'd like help with getting their bodies back into shape and getting themselves unstuck, how can
Yeah.
they reach out to you? What's the best way to find you?
So yeah, so Instagram's usually the best way. Now, you could ask my mom. I always have stints where I get off of the app, just because I don't like it that much as I get older. But I would say two ways, Instagram being the best. So my Instagram is just my initials, HMV.Fitness.Wellness. That's going to be my Instagram. And then my email is so simple. It's just huanshedo@gmail.com, HUANSHEDO @gmail.com.
Awesome. I'm just going to pop that in the
Yeah.
chat on Facebook in my Soul Sourced Healing group, where we are chatting live on Sunday morning. So if you are watching on Facebook, just check the show notes, and in the comments you will see those. And if you're watching on YouTube or listening on Connecting You to You Radio, just check the show notes, and those connections will be in there as well. So Eve, thank you. Grateful to present in this conversation, to be present in this conversation. And Brenny says, awesome and inspiring conversation. Thank you so much. Delbert, so yep, Delbert, what did he say?
I think my dogs are happy too.
Yeah.
I think they're doing a little performance for the ending of the
There
show.
you go. It's like the grand finale. Beautiful. Huanshedo, thank you so very much. It's really a pleasure. I hope you'll come back and have another conversation with
Yeah.
us sometime.
Yeah. I would look forward to it.
That would be great. We would love to have you.
Yeah, I would happy to be back on. I really enjoyed it.
Great. Well, we did too. So for everybody that has been tuning in live, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We love having the conversation going in the group here. And if you're watching live on YouTube, hey, subscribe to my channel. If this conversation inspired you and you think it would inspire others, please share it. And so every morning, every Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern in Soul Sourced Healing, and on Facebook. If you'd like to join the conversation live, come on in. We'd love to have you. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Huanshedo. Until next week, create for yourselves a great week. Bye for now.